Ocarina of TIme. Have a great day, you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm kidding. 1998. Actually, let's rewind a little bit further back than 98. Let's go back to the mid-90s. Nintendo Power. Nintendo Power was the king of hype. All they did was hype up this new system they were bringing out called the Nintendo Ultra 64. I couldn't wait to see it. Oh, it was going to be 3D graphics, and they had this weird-looking alien controller.
Seriously though, this controller is pretty weird.
They kept previewing all the games, and I was reading all of these previews for Super Mario 64 and GoldenEye, and I was really stoked for Earthbound 64. Nintendo Power even sent out these really nifty promo tapes to promote their new games that were coming up. These tapes were real cheesy, the acting was horrible, and...
Hey, buddy, you got the time?
Sure, it's,
Hey, aren't you the...
It was just a short little 10-15 minute thing, but it was fun to watch. They did it total Marvel style. If you watched it all the way to the end, there was a bonus feature. And in this bonus feature, they showed clips of upcoming N64 games. And there was one in particular I didn't expect.
Wait a second. What was that?
Man, that is one killer lineup.
boy, are we in big trouble.
I couldn't believe my eyes! Zelda 64?
What?
Oh man, it was gonna be so epic! I couldn't wait to see what awesome adventures they'd have, and in 3D no less. The Nintendo Power just kept hyping and hyping and hyping. It was gonna be the greatest thing ever. Now, how often do you see games that are hyped up that much that totally just suck? It happens all the time. So was Nintendo's newest Zelda game gonna live up to all the hype that they made for it? Or is it just gonna be a letdown? Well, I don't think they didn't expect it to be good. Because, well, y'all know how I feel about gold cartridges.
I love gold!
Now I just needed a Zelda game to make the N64 as epic as my Super Nintendo. And it was coming soon on this newfangled 64 disc drive that was coming out. It was going to be great. But we all know how that turned out. Zelda ended up getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. I was really looking forward to two games. One was Earthbound 64 and the other was Zelda Ocarina of TIme. So what was going on?
Ocarina of Time was a drastic change in direction for the Zelda franchise, which wasn't a surprise like it was with Zelda 2. All video game franchises of the era were going to 3D, some with great success like Mario and Final Fantasy, and others not so much. The footage from the aforementioned videotape was from a tech demo at Shoshinkai in 1995. The game was originally planned for an N64 add-on, which Nintendo had been teasing for a while up to that point, the 64DD. No, that's not a bra size, it stands for disk drive. Perverts.
I got them heavy boobs, dance like dying stars, I got them.
Keeping an action-adventure theme instead of going towards an RPG style of gameplay was a smart move for Shigeru Miyamoto to base his magnum opus on. It was to be the flagship, system-selling title for the add-on. But as the 64DD was delayed, they had to move the new Zelda game back over to the N64 itself, which accounts for a large part of the reason the title was repeatedly delayed. However, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise in that Miyamoto's team had more time to work on the game despite the stress it was causing them. Miyamoto was worried that porting the title over to the Nintendo 64, rather than keeping it on the DD, would limit the amount of data they could put into the game. This would limit the land of Hyrule to a singular point, very similar to Bowser's Castle in Super Mario 64. Link would enter portraits to travel to different worlds. As a backup plan, they developed a hub that would work just like that, but fortunately, they were able to fit the entire game on what was, at the time, the largest N64 cartridge to date. The idea actually did lead to a really cool fun fact. The original hub they designed ended up being turned into a boss battle that made it into the actual finished game. The battle against Phantom Ganon in the Forest Temple was a modified version of this hub. Pretty cool, huh? The move to 3D was a risky one for a series that was traditionally top-down in perspective, but it paid off nicely. A revamped control scheme, a new graphics engine, and a wonderful setting made this game a masterpiece of gameplay design.
It wasn't until I stepped out into Hyrule Field that the scale of this game really hit me. The Kokiri Forest,
The Kokiri Forest, the Kokiri Forest,
The Kokiri Forest, the Kokiri Forest scene.
was only a tutorial. Never in my video gaming life had I seen a world this massive, and almost everything you could see, you could explore. It was overwhelming. We'll talk more about the technical details of this game in just a bit, but for now, let's touch on the story of Ocarina of Time first.
Hey! Listen!
Unlike previous videos in our Zelda Retrospective Series, I am not going to spoil this story for you guys. There will be very minor spoilers coming up ahead, but I strongly encourage you to experience the game for yourself. That being said, we will touch on the story that leads up to Ocarina of Time, just to kind of give you a little bit of what's going on. During the events of a massive conflict known as the Hyrulean Civil War, a woman escaped the ravages of war with her child. This woman was gravely injured, but managed to reach Kokiri Forest, a sanctuary that deters all outsiders. Before passing away, she left the child in the care of the Great Deku Tree. The boy was raised to be a Kokiri, and would remain unaware of his destiny until one day, when the Gerudo King of Thieves appeared in the forest and demanded a spiritual stone from the Great Deku Tree. The mighty guardian tree refused to give it to him though, sensing his evil intentions, and in return, the man put a death curse upon him. The Great Deku Tree entreats Navi, a young fairy of Kokiri Forest, to take the boy known as Link to the Great Deku Tree. After he obtains a sword and shield, he approaches the Great Tree. The Deku Tree then tells Link of the curse upon him, and the brave youth enters the Deku Tree to break the evil curse. After he successfully defeats the enemies inside, the tree reveals that it was already too late for him even before he entered. In his last moments of life, he tells Link of the creation of Hyrule and the Triforce that Ganondorf desires. He reveals that it is Link's destiny to thwart the great evil and restore peace to Hyrule, and gives him the spiritual stone of the forest, one of the 3 keys to unlocking the gates to the sacred realm where the Triforce is kept. He is to seek out Princess Zelda, the Princess of Hyrule. Link makes his way into Hyrule Castle, sneaks in, and meets Princess Zelda. She had prophesied that a hero clothed in green would appear holding a spiritual stone to thwart an impending evil. Link shows her the spiritual stone, and the two devise a plan to defeat Ganondorf. Link must collect the 2 remaining spiritual stones, the Goron's Ruby and the Zora's Sapphire, and open the Door of Time in the Temple of Time with the help of the royal family's hidden treasure, the Ocarina of Time, in order to obtain the Triforce before Ganondorf does. Can Link make it in time? And what is of this Master Sword that legend speaks of? In A Link to the Past, a little bit of the lore of Hyrule was discussed, but this was the first time it was really talked about in depth in the game. The goddesses whom created the Triforce, for example, are actually shown in game, not just talked about. Also, Nintendo ran with the barely mentioned concept of the villain Ganondorf, who before this game was only really text. He was always Ganon, but in this title, he's the main antagonist. The story for Ocarina develops in a very unique way. You meet many zany, oftentimes annoying and even strange characters on your journey, and you have Twin Peaks to thank for this. Yes, this game was inspired by David Lynch's 90s television drama about an FBI agent. What? Why is this? Well, the story itself wasn't from a psychological thriller, but the crazy people in that television series inspired Nintendo to make Link's journey similar in nature. Which is why this guy exists. Or this guy. And this annoyingly lazy deadbeat father and crappy ranch owner sleeping son of a bitch, I hate you, Talon. You look like Mario, but you give him a bad name. Why your daughter doesn't hate you for making her a slave of your ranch hand? Who, despite looking like an evil, demented Luigi, at least works while you do nothing but sleep. On a side note, did you ever notice this?
That explains a lot.
Oh, poor Malin. She's a demon child. She deserves a real man. Link, you gotta get on that, bro. And speaking of Link, as if you didn't already know, this was the first time we were shown two separate Links. It was always implied in the other games that he was either a young man or a child. In fact, in Zelda 2, that was the only game where his actual age was revealed, which was 16. No official age was ever released for Ocarina, but it was hinted on several occasions that adult Link is between 15 and 17 years old. The common belief is that he's 15, which would make young Link 8? Holy crap! I was playing with sticks in the backyard when I was 8, and he's battling the Dongos? Wow, dude. And Zelda still doesn't put out... Oh, what the hell. Well, at least Link has choices. He was the most popular Kokiri with the ladies. Maybe you can use Navi to get some insider info.
Speaking of Navi... Well, anyways, as I was trying to say, I was... Okay, so I'm trying to introduce... Will you let me finish? Alright, I've about had enough... I mean to hit the camera, but that actually might have been a really good shot.
All kidding aside, Navi was a genius way to introduce the new targeting system in Ocarina of Time, Z-targeting. It was brilliant. 3D gaming was very new at the time, and camera angles were undoubtedly the worst problem that game developers faced in their new games.
What is this?
What is it?
Blood.
Well, that wasn't the only problem that early 3D games had. Voice acting. My God.
Hope this is not Chris's blood.
You thought I was asleep, didn't you?
No wonder Zelda never had voice acting in it.
Acting.
Link could circle around enemies, dodge them, jump, block, use items, and of course attack. And if he couldn't figure out an enemy's weak point, he could call upon Navi to gain any information on the enemy she could find out. Link was also able to switch items and gear like never before, thanks to an improved control scheme and subscreen. Thanks to the N64's whopping 9 usable action buttons, it allowed for Link to have 3 separate sub-items equipped on top of his sword and shield. The C button layout just so happened to be perfect for this, and the player could easily switch from a bow and arrow to a Deku Nut or a potion at a whim if he or she needed. For the first time, the player could also change the sword, shield, or tunic that Link had equipped. It made for a really deep experience, especially in the case of the water temple. It wasn't necessarily a good thing, but we'll come back to that in a second. The graphics in Ocarina of Time were stunning in 1998, but they haven't really aged that well. But keep in mind, 3D titles of that era didn't age well at all. Most of them look very bad and blocky and blurry, so the fact that Ocarina still looks pretty decent today is that's just a testament to how good this game looked back in 98. With wonderfully animated, fully polygonal characters, decent texture quality considering the technical limitations of the N64, the world is so well animated, in fact, that if you're able to look past the blocky and ancient 3D models, by the time you've reached Goron City, it won't even be something you think about anymore. And of course, the music. For the first time in the series, Link had an alternate means of transportation in Epona, quite possibly the most famous horse in video game history. Next to using the Ocarina, Epona allowed the player to quickly travel the massive land of Hyrule. And speaking of the Ocarina itself is a unique thing for a video game, let alone a Zelda game. The instruments from Link's Awakening were just small potatoes compared to the central instrument in, well, Ocarina of Time. Nintendo actually designed a full-on instrument. Most fans know that you can change the notes with the C buttons, but did you know that with the right combination of the R button, the Z button, the control stick, and the notes themselves, you have an instrument that can actually play a full 1.5 octave range. Now let's see, you take 5 notes, multiply it by 3 pitches, a flat, a sharp, and a vibrato, and you can play 45 freaking different notes? Wow, that's impressive. Oh, that's so cool. I'm gonna try.
Oh, God.
Well, the ocarina is stupid anyways. Nah, I'm just kidding. I actually do know a song, so check this out.
I still remember that. I still remember that. That's fucking cool. Ah, shit.
There's also a fishing minigame, and this isn't new per se, as Link's Awakening had the first real fishing game in a Zelda game, but this one is a lot more realistic. It's actually better than a lot of the fishing games that were standalone video games at that time.
You thought I was asleep, didn't you? Acting.
Not quite as good as Twilight Princess's fishing minigame, but a really fun distraction that could literally last for hours.
Don't you have work today?
I called in sick. I'm gonna catch this lunch.
Now, this isn't to say the gameplay of Ocarina of Time is perfect. First of all, there's a lot of glitches, which is weird since most of the glitches in previous Zelda titles were hard to pull off by accident. We don't have the time to show all the glitches in this episode, but just for example, did you know that if you catch something in a bottle, then quickly switch to another item, your item will be replaced with another bottle? Now this can suck if you switch to a useful item on mistake, but if you use this glitch after, for example, you've planted all 10 magic beans, you can have an extra bottle with a fairy in it. Only downside is you'll only be able to use it as adult Link.
And that brings us to the reason why this game shines so bright, and why it's generally regarded as one of the best, if not the best, Zelda game in the entire franchise. The fact that you can use time itself as a tool is perhaps the greatest executed feature in this entire game. You play the entire first part of the game exclusively as young Link, and then suddenly, without warning, boom, you're adult Link! You're big and strong!
Harder, better, faster, stronger.
And it happens without warning, and this was mind-blowing in itself. You can walk outside and see Hyrule Castle in ruins. And there's re-dead zombies all over the place, so God, I hate them zombies.
Don't be afraid. I'll make you feel all good. Oh yeah, Link. I'll screw your brains out, and then I might eat them. Come here, baby. Just don't pull my hair, it might fall out.
Stinks like sex in here.
It was like some sort of epic movie or something. Everybody was older, Death Mountain was exploding everywhere, Lake Hylia was dried up, the Gorons and the Zoras were all missing, and there was no real explanation on why. Till later in the game, and you find out the real reason. It's all Ganondorf's fault, which, in a way, is all my fault. It's my fault? It's my fault. Rudo. Darunia. Zarya? Zelda? What about Richard to die? He's not a Kakariko! He got eaten by the Reapers!
You thought I was asleep, didn't you?
Even Kakariko Village changed. I mean, everything changed. It was so much, and it all happened so quick. And it's all because you pulled the Master Sword. You got tricked. You got played, son. You got played by Ganondorf. You didn't even see Ganondorf. And then all of a sudden you find out this guy allowed you. That's the key word. He allowed you to go and get the spiritual stones. He allowed you to pull the Master Sword. He could have killed you at any time, but he knew that if he allowed you to go out and do his work, to get your hands dirty, he could use you, quite literally, as his own tool to do his bidding, abstractly through yourself and Princess Zelda. It was like, damn, man, like, it really kind of smacked you in the manhood. I guess if you're a girl, your proverbial manhood in the jewels. That works. That's a cross-gender term, correct? Jewels? In a world this big, the way that it comes into play, especially if you didn't know it was coming into play, it might be the best executed of all time. Pun intended. That one was for you, Krill.
Once you became adult Link, it opened up the game dramatically. It allowed you to go back in time to do things in the past, like plant beans or open chests, and even interact with people, and it affected the future directly. You could travel forward in time 7 years and see the immediate effects of your actions from the past. It's amazing. We saw stuff like this in games like the epic RPG Chrono Trigger, but it was different in a 3D game of such epic scale like Ocarina of Time. And of course, the most interesting change was in Link. He's all grown up now. But it was almost a metaphorical change as well as physical. Link has always been a silent protagonist, so the player projects him or herself onto Link. So it gave a sense of justice to the player because his or her actions indirectly caused all this chaos, and now it's up to you to save the land, to reverse your actions. There was a sense that the player was growing up right alongside Link. It was so unique to the series, but also to gaming in general. It was brilliant. Speaking of brilliant, the temples and dungeons in this game are absolutely breathtaking, and I know I've used that adjective before, but these might be the best in the entire series. Puzzles that weren't too hard to figure out, boss fights that were amazing and epic in scale, unlike anything we had seen to that point. Just every dungeon was a masterpiece of game design, except for one. Glaring example. Now let me just say one thing before I continue. The water temple took me a long time to beat, as it did most people. But when I figured out what I did wrong, I was more frustrated with myself than anything else. But I do think Nintendo went a little overboard in the unforgiveness of this temple, because you can make one small mistake in a temple that's already kind of confusing. You miss one key or raise the wrong water level at the wrong time, and it can screw you up. And this is back before the internet community really took off with walkthroughs and stuff. So when I got stuck, and let's face it, everyone got stuck, I became so frustrated I almost stopped playing. I'm glad I didn't, but damn! The Triforces don't tell you what to do, so if you play Zelda's Lullaby at the wrong time, guess what? You have to backtrack and do it all over again. And the thing is, you wouldn't even know you fucked up. It was bullshit. Also, there were cryptically hidden keys you couldn't find, even if you checked every nook and cranny, stupid blocks you had to push and you didn't know you had to, and the damn iron boots. Oh man, you'll be switching your boots on and off all day. Now that being said, it does have 3 redeeming factors. Number 1, the Dark Link battle. Now this is the best fight in the entire game, besides maybe the Twin Rova fight or Ganondorf, but this was so much fun, and much better than his damn fight. Damn, time to cheese it! That's better. This was a brilliant fight with a gorgeous room that stood out so much from the dull blue temple around it. Still one of the highlights of the entire game. Number 2, the final fight with Morpha. And the boss battles in this game are all fun. Now this one isn't the best, but it's a pretty good one, and the satisfaction from beating him is unmatched. Which brings us to number 3. The rest of the game. The puzzles in the rest of the game are nowhere as bad as the puzzles in the water temple. And once you get past it, the rest of the game is a comparative cakewalk. So if you can get past the water temple, you can breathe a sigh of relief hard part is over.
Hey, listen.
Ocarina of TIme, hands down, head and shoulders, my favorite Zelda game. Mostly because I was at that age where I could really enjoy video games. I had the hand-eye coordination to totally get down with the Nintendo 64 controller. It was just a really good time in my life. You know what I mean? I had a 64. Just the gameplay, the graphics at the time, the storyline, going from little to big Link versus the other Zelda games, the other games with Link. You know what I mean? But you watched him grow up in this one. You could play as the little guy and you could play as the big guy. I love the accessories, the boomerang, riding the horse. I think everything about that game was revolutionary at the time. I mean, this is a time period where I was playing Mortal Kombat, I was playing Street Fighter. I was playing Final Fantasy, but even then, that's a turn-based RPG. Whereas this adventure game had me controlling the character, and seemingly everything I did affected something. If I didn't do one thing, it would affect another thing. If I did do another thing, it would affect another. You can constantly, not necessarily level up, but you get more hearts, which makes you stronger in the sense that you can't get defeated as quickly. You get more items that make you stronger. You can pick up items. And then the puzzles, I don't know, man, just something about the game, man. The game, everything about the game was beautiful.
There's not much I can say that hasn't been said already by others. It's the second highest rated game of all time on Game Rankings, the highest rated game of all time on Metacritic, the first perfect score in Famitsu Magazine, a perfect score in IGN, GamePro, EGM, a 9.5 in Nintendo Power. This is the best-selling Zelda game of all time with over 7 million copies sold. It's also the most re-released title in the entire series. It is on the Nintendo 64, 2 different versions on the GameCube, the Chinese iQube console, the Wii Virtual Console, the Wii U Virtual Console, the 3DS Remake, which is definitely the superior version, but the N64 version is no slouch. There's a Master Quest on the GameCube, but it is surprisingly rare these days. Luckily, the Master Quest is also in the 3DS Remake, so that's the way to go if you have a 3DS. Ocarina of Time 3D also improved the ease of the water temple dramatically, with directional arrows and a quick swap feature for the iron boots, making the temple a comparative breeze compared to the original version. And of course, with fully mastered and fully 3D graphics, the 3DS version is superior and is the way to go if you're a newcomer to Ocarina of Time. If you don't own a 3DS, however, a Wii U download should do the trick nicely, if you don't have an N64 chilling in your attic.
It definitely holds a special place in my heart, and I'm sure a lot of you out there agree with me. It set the standard for the next generation of 3D platform games. I'd even go so far as to say it set the standard for 3D games to this day. And it definitely did so for the Zelda franchise. The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword have to thank this title because they were all modeled after this. Of course, we can't forget about the next title in the series, which was very obviously modeled after this game, and, well, I don't want to go too much into it now, but it's one of the most epic adventures in the entire franchise. I mean, I'm running out of adjectives for the Zelda franchise, and we're not even halfway through this series. In part 6 of our Zelda Retrospective Series, we'll be talking about Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64 and Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D for the 3DS. Till then, I'm JSR, reminding you to always hold the reset button down and turn the power off, or else you might lose your save data. Take care.